Welcome back. The business community is regaining confidence in the economy as the country implements structural reforms, tackles key challenges and shows signs of progress. In terms of progress, load shedding is no longer a major concern and efforts to address port inefficiencies are underway, with Transnet outlining its recovery plan. And joining me as we discuss the health of the local economy as we prepare to host the G20 summit is the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa, Busi Mavuso. Thank you so much for your time, Busi. Let's actually start there with what we have achieved with those structural reforms. Has enough groundwork been laid here?
We've done a lot of work. I mean, if you look at the key issue that affected a lot of businesses, it was mainly the issue of the dysfunction of network industries. When we talk about network industries, we're talking about energy, we're talking about water, we're talking about telecoms, we're talking about transport and logistics. You know, on the energy front, we've definitely turned the corner and a lot of progress is being done in as far as that is concerned. In as far as transport and logistics, that is actually being addressed, and we're very confident as the business community about the intervention that are actually being implemented by the current Transnet leadership as well as the minister. You know, you would have seen the network statement that was actually published by Transnet, or rather by the department in December, and that is a great progress forward. From a water perspective, that is getting a lot of attention. So I think we are really moving in the right direction. The visas, for instance, you know, I know that the minister soon is going to be announcing that we have dealt with the backlog that we had as a country, and there are systems in place that are going to ensure that we don't get back into the situation of having backlogs. So I really think we need to pat ourselves on the back, you know, as a country, in as far as the reform agenda is concerned. The Operation Vulindlela has done a great job in as far as that is concerned, but also the business government partnership that you have in place at the moment that has entered its current phase, or its second phase, and that has actually enabled the business community to give a lot of resources, talent, people, and funding, you know, to this initiative has been a great contribution, and that is why we're seeing the progress that we've seen.
Well, I actually want to zoom into that partnership because, I mean, we wouldn't have achieved what we have achieved so far without the involvement of the private sector, and really just the government and the private sector working hand in hand. It seems that there is a clear alignment, and you talk about this new phase that partnership is in. Would you say that this is a sustainable partnership that will really need to carry on for the long haul?
We are confident that it's going to carry on for the long haul. The GNU has actually lended its support, you know, to the partnership. We are seeing Moody's, you know, which has actually come out last week to actually note the progress that has been made, you know, by the partnership, by the GNU. It has noted the reforms that have actually been put in place. So business is committed. You know, we are going to be in it for as long as government wants us to be involved. You know, we have actually committed to roll up our sleeves to ensure that we work with this government to ensure that South Africa, you know, becomes a capable state, and to ensure that the trading environment that we have as a country is one that is actually going to be conducive. Because when you think about it, we are going to be hosting the G20 presidency, and the messaging that we're actually going to be taking to the world is that South Africa is open for business, is that South Africa is, you know, a lucrative destination for investment. Now, if we are not going to therefore commit to making sure that the work that we're doing from a reform perspective gains progress, then it means that, you know, the message that we're going to be putting out there that South Africa is open for business is actually not going to be true. So that is what motivates us, you know, when all is said and done. It is to ensure that we get investment. Through investment, you can grow our economy at the right level, and if our economy is growing at the right level, then we can start to arrest the 42% unemployment in terms of the expanded definition that is actually crippling the South African economy at the moment.
Yeah, and it's really, really important, of course, as you mentioned, that business and the private sector really have to be aligned in terms of the messaging that is communicated out there, in terms of Davos that is coming up very soon, but also really the G20 that is also being hosted in South Africa. But also let's zoom in on that, what you expect the benefits to be here, and particularly also when you zoom into the B20 as well.
So when you look at the G20, it gives us an opportunity to can actually showcase what South Africa has to offer. And the fact that we're actually going to Davos next week as both the business and government team to activate our presidency is actually important, because that is a critical platform where more than 1,000 business leaders from all over the world, business leaders coming from developed economies, from countries that we actually want to attract attention from. So we actually are going to be engaging with the captured market, so that is definitely important. And it's going to be a critical opportunity for us to demonstrate the progress that we have made as a country. Remember the headlines, kept on saying that South Africa is experiencing blackouts. The headlines were that visas are difficult to get in South Africa. The headlines have actually been negative. So we actually have an opportunity to actually say, this is the progress that we have made, and these are the opportunities that exist in South Africa to establish, the kind of investment and the kind of companies that you'd actually like to establish. So the message that we're taking to Davos is that South Africa is a jurisdiction that matters. We are taking a message that says South Africa is a market that has a lot to offer, and a country that is actually heading in the right direction. We're taking a message that says South Africa is key, in the African continent. If you want to land in the African continent, you have to use South Africa as the landing pad, and I think that message is actually going to be received very well, because we've got, the receipts, in the forms of the progress that we've made to show that indeed South Africa is definitely open for business.
Yeah. And just to wrap up the conversation, Busi, just to close the gap from where we are and where we want to be economically, of course, with growth there at least between 3 and 5%, where does the focus need to be to ensure that there are no lingering risks that threaten this momentum?
We have estimated that if we can achieve what we'd set out to achieve for ourselves, and that is going to be reiterated. We're seeing the president on Thursday. The business government meeting is happening this current Thursday. So that is an opportunity for us to actually agree and commit, to what we'd like to achieve in 2025. If we achieve and we commit to that, we are going to be seeing a 3% growth in 2025. And that is definitely going to impact the unemployment that you actually have in the country at the moment. So that is the short-term target. But in the long term, we know for us to actually make a serious dent on the unemployment figures, we need to be growing our economy at about 5%. And we think in the next 2-3 years, we can be able to achieve that, especially if the G20 platform and presidency is utilized correctly, and we get additional investments, from foreign direct investors and from the international community. In definitely the next 2 to 3 years, South Africa can be hitting about 5%, economic growth. So we are definitely on the right path. We are exactly where we need to be, and we're very positive, that we're actually in a situation where we have finally turned the corner, and we can actually, go from strength to strength from here.
Yeah, well, let's hope that those opportunities indeed do materialize, and we can definitely seal significant economic growth there. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights today, Busi. That was the CEO of BLSA, Busi Mavuso.